Hello, mighty companions. I want to welcome you to A Course in Miracles here on Facebook Live. I'm Earl Purdy, and we are going to be in a section called The Problem and the Answer. The Problem and the Answer. The Problem and the Answer. It's on page 211 in the blue book, the text, the Foundation for Inner Peace version of the course. And I am very much about how can we actually, the practical application of the Course in Miracles is what I'm focused in on right now. Not so much the abstract aspects of it, which people love to talk about, but how can I make what the Course in Miracles is talking about work in my everyday life? Now, usually that's not as popular to teach, because when you talk about practical application, you're talking about a person having to change their mind, and you're talking about the person has to actually remember what they're hearing and apply it. And so I'm going to go slow. It's not about how much I cover, it's about whether or not we hear it. And those of you, let me fix this mic just a little bit. Uh-huh. And so what we want to do first of all is we want to remember the attitude that you're supposed to take when you're studying A Course in Miracles. And the main attitude that we're being asked to take if we study the Course in Miracles is to remember that when somebody says something that you don't believe, you have a tendency to not believe it. Do you know when someone says something opposite to what you believe, you have a tendency not to want to accept it? Everybody clear about that? Okay. Are you also clear that just because you don't believe something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not true? Can we agree on that? Have there been a time in your life where you thought something was true that you found out wasn't? Okay. That's what I love about what's going on with the Hubble's, the new telescope that they put up in the sky. Every day they say, oh, this is totally defying the known laws of what we have thought was true about astronomy of the planet. You see that almost every day. But before they discovered that, they thought that was true. Then the Course in Miracles, which says if we think correctly, it's a miracle. That's why it's called A Course in Miracles. If we love each other, it's a miracle. If we have sanity with each other, it's a miracle. If we stop trying to change other people to get them to be the way we think they should be, it's a miracle, right? If we take responsibility for our experience and stop blaming other people for what we're going through, including our childhood, it's a miracle. Give your mom and dad a break. Okay, they're not responsible for why you're having a hard time in relationships. I'll say it again. Your mom and dad, whoever brought you up, they're not responsible for your present financial situation, and they're not responsible for whether or not you're enjoying your life right now. Those, at some point in your spiritual evolution, you recognize that that's become an excuse. It's not really, I'm not saying that you might not have had, a childhood of people in your life when you were younger who were just like you. What do you mean? You don't know how to love all the time and forgive all the time and have sanity all the time and do everything right all the time. So why you think that all the people that you grew up with also should have also been perfect? As a parent myself, in most cases, you just freaking winging it. As a parent, doing the best you can in the situation that you're in, dealing with enormous, unrealistic expectations that come from your children. Because they're just a smaller version of what all of us do. They hold you responsible for their happiness. And as adults, we hold our partners, friends sometimes, responsible. So the Course in Miracles says, I'm going to give you the problem and I'm going to give you the answer. You don't have to believe it, But if you want to be able to hear it, he says, well, this is what you need to remember. This is straight from the book. You don't have to believe the ideas in the Course in Miracles. You don't have to accept the ideas in the Course in Miracles. You don't even need to welcome the ideas in the Course in Miracles. So you don't have to believe what I'm about to tell you from this book. You don't have to accept what I'm about to tell you from this book. And you don't have to welcome what I'm about to tell you from this book. Some of the ideas, you might resist some of the ideas that I share with you. You may resist some of the ideas that I share with you. You may resist some of the ideas that I share with you. You may resist some of the ideas that I share with you. Some of the ideas you might find hard to believe. You might find some of the things I say hard to believe. And some of the things that the Course in Miracles says might startle you. I'm here primarily to be helpful after 40 plus years of teaching and studying the Course. I'm trying to be especially helpful to people who are students of A Course in Miracles. People who are trying to give it some attention and study themselves. Not just people who listen to tapes, not just people who even come to classes, even though I'm glad and grateful that you're here. But after spending 4 decades of my life studying and teaching this, I know I can be most helpful to people who are also doing their work. And especially people who are trying to tackle what they think of as the study of this book, because it can seem daunting to read. And sometimes I wonder why I teach it at all, because it's like sometimes it's like you feel like you're going to battle when you teach the Course in Miracles, because it can bring up so much resistance from people consciously and subconsciously. Like if I was doing a class on how to manifest more money, not a lot of resistance. If I was doing a class on how to lose weight, not a lot of resistance. A class on how to have a better sex life, not a whole lot of resistance. A class on, you see what I'm saying? How to have a more successful career. But this is a spiritual teaching. So when you talk about spiritual teachings, and you're talking about changing your perception and changing your mind and forgiving and letting go of the past, that brings up a lot of resistance. Because do you know that you are more than what you've been taught you are according to the Course in Miracles? According to the Course in Miracles, you are a spiritual being. You are a spiritual being. That means you're not your body. You're not just a human being. That's the premise of this course. We are spiritual beings who have amnesia. We are spiritual beings who have forgotten the truth of who we really are. And that we've forgotten, do you know that the reason why you have forgotten who you really are is that you believe you are what you were taught you are. And from the time you were born, people were describing to you who and what you are. And then when you get to the point you accept those descriptions of yourself, do you know what they call you? A member of society. A member of society is simply someone that's gone into agreement with the cultural norms that they live in. So if everybody has been taught that they're green, then at the point you believe you were the color green, like everybody else believes they're the color green, then you would be called a sane, acceptable member of society, because you now believe what everybody else generally believes. So the Course is saying you all really don't know, and we don't really have the slightest idea who we are. We're just acting from the descriptions of ourselves that we've learned through what we were taught, and also the past experiences that we've gone through. So what most people believe about themselves is just a belief system that they've learned based on what they've experienced in the past. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. So the way that you're feeling today is coming from what you're telling yourself based on everything that you've learned and experienced. So who are you really? And if you say you're separate from me, and I say I'm separate from you, then I know that according to A Course in Miracles, you don't know the truth about who you are, and I don't know the truth about who I am. Because we're not separate beings. We have separate bodies. We have separate egos. We have separate learning. But we're not separate. So the Course says, guess what? You're not being asked to analyze the ideas at all. You're not being asked to judge the ideas. It says, if you want to see that the ideas are true. And I know some of you heard this over and over again. I feel like the flight attendant in the airline giving you the safety announcements, right? Okay? Because we'll think, well, I've heard that. Yeah, but the Course says, if you want to change your mind, if you want to accept a new belief, if you want to accept a new truth, which will give you a new way of dealing with your behavior, then you have to repeat the new idea until you accept it. So I call myself divine repetition teacher. And the reason why I call myself divine repetition teacher is after 4 decades of teaching this book and seeing the people who actually achieved the goal, moral peace, and those who are still going through the same changes they've ever gone through, is the person who gives it attention and study and keeps repeating it and remembering it, eventually that becomes their viewpoint and their outlook on life and the way they deal with things. So as soon as they change their mind, they change their behavior. And then when they change their behavior, they start to reflect a different reality. Those who analyze it but still keep their old patterns going are those who say, I've been studying and reading for years, but I'm still going through the same thing that I've been going through. That's the same as saying, I've been reading the recipe book over and over and over again, but I haven't put the ingredients together to make the cake.
But we know that book.
Right, they can quote every line, every sentence, some of them, right? And but at the same time, they still have problems forgiving. So what does that mean? It means they're not repeating it to themselves. They're not repeating the truth that the Course is teaching when they're upset or when they're having a hard time. So the Course says, read me slowly. So if you use the ideas, you'll see that they're true. So that also means if you don't see that it's true, you're not using the ideas. So what's the very first line? The very first line on page 211 is that this is a very simple course. What does that mean? Well, he says, do you know that perhaps you don't feel you need a course, which in the end is telling you that only what's real is true. I'm doing it in plain language. So the Course is trying to teach you that only what's true and real is what you can count on. And people go, of course, only what's real is true. But he says, but do you believe it? Do you believe that only love is true? Do you believe that only reality is true? Do you believe that only unity, oneness, and peace is true? Because according to the Course, that's reality. Reality is love. Reality is loving. I find that most people in the world are kind, loving people. They just think everybody else is the threat. I'm a good person, and I don't know about y'all. You see what I'm saying? That's the way most people look at it. I'm basically a good person, but I don't know what you're gonna do. So the Course in Miracles is trying to get us to understand that love is really our natural state. Peace is really our natural state. That's who we really are. So the premise that you start out with, if you want to get rid of the problem, is to accept that you are real. You are love. You are loving. You are lovable. And I don't want to hear the yes, but. I don't want to hear about all the other reasons why that's not true. Okay? The Course in Miracles says when you perceive the real world, and when you finally do perceive real love, and when you finally do perceive the real truth, what's going to happen? You're going to recognize that one day, if you keep studying the truth, you're going to recognize you really didn't recognize the truth. That everything I thought was true isn't true at all. And one of the reasons why a lot of times I encourage people to follow along in the book is because most of the time when you don't, you go to sleep. Very few people are able to maintain 100% attention on the Course in Miracles without zoning out. But if I'm trying to learn how to get this and read this, see, you got to realize the part of you that doesn't want you to hear this is going to do everything it can to make you go unconscious. So you got to proactively do something to help you stay focused in. Now, one of the reasons why it's hard to stay focused in on something is that a person doesn't believe it works and that it's going to give them what they want. If you really believe this book was going to give you what you wanted, you'd be riveted. If you really believe that this was going to really help you get rid of a problem that you have, you'd be riveted. So if I came in here and said, if you would give me 100% attention for 15 minutes, I would give you a check for $3,000. It probably wouldn't be a person in the room that goes to sleep. Why? Because they be motivated. At that point, if I focus in, I'm going to get something that I want, then I'm on it. I'm on it. So this book is saying, well, if you focus in on it, you'll be free of sorrow, pain, lack, conflict, bum relationships, dissatisfaction with everything that's going on in your life will be gone. That's what it promises, right? And so it says, the swiftness with which your new and only real perception will be translated into knowledge will lead you but an instant to realize that the truth is true. And then what's going to happen to once you really accept the truth? Well, he says, well, when you really accept the truth, everything you made will be forgotten. If I thought you were Jesse and your real name was Megan, and I learned and realized you're Megan, I'm going to forget ever calling you Jesse. I'm never going to call you Jesse anymore. So the Course in Miracles is saying that once you realize the truth, everything else that you believe, all your patterns, everything that's causing you fear and upset, all the beliefs that cause you pain, it says you're going to forget. That means you're going to forget what you thought was good. You're going to forget what you thought was bad. You're going to forget what you thought was false, but you're also going to forget what you think is true. Because as love and your earth experience becomes one, even the real world will vanish from your mind. So do you know that the end of the world is not the destruction of the world? The end of the world is its translation into love. I said again, the end of the world is not the destruction of the world. The end of the world as we know it, which is full of fear, separation, conflict, broken in two by periods where we think we just saw a good movie. Okay? He says that world that you see in a fearful way is going to be gone. So the end of the world from a Course perspective is the end of your fear, guilt, false perception of things. So the end of the world is the end of your fear. The end of the world is not the destruction of the world. The end of the world is the end of your perception of the world that causes you fear. So what is it that the Course in Miracles says that we experience? Two things. What's that? Fear and love. That's the only thing everybody's experiencing, is some form of fear and love. So it says the reinterpretation of the world is the translation of all your perception to knowledge. So the reinterpretation is, I'm going to go from perception, which is judging, to knowledge, which is knowing. So we're going to go from judging and evaluating to knowing. We're going to go from judging and evaluating to absolute certainty. And so the Bible tells you to become just like little children. So what is it that's the characteristic of a little child that the Course in Miracles is asking us to do? It says, well, a little child understands that they don't understand what they're looking at. Mm-hmm. A little child gets, what is that, Daddy? What is that, Mommy? They know that they have no idea of what they're looking at. And so a child will ask what it means, right? Adults tend not to do that. Adults, when they don't even know what something means, have a tendency to make up a meaning rather than admit they don't know what's going on. Because the blasphemy for an adult is to say, I have no idea what the hell is going on, right? And then if you're in a male ego, you're taught even more that you're supposed to know what's going on and in charge. Mm-hmm. And fortunately now, we equally are making the wrong perceptions, male and female. So now it's not just the men. It's like, it's such a blend nowadays that it's hard to even tell the difference in the thinking of a man and a woman anymore.
Or even child.
Or even tell the difference, right? Because we're going into an age that we're going into another level of acceptance, or having to go into another level of acceptance of loving differences. That's what the Aquarian age basically is saying. That we're going to have to see each other as equals and learn how to respect and love the differences in each other. And not only that, learn how to use those differences to the benefit of all of us. So that's why we see so much tribalism right now. That's why we see everybody dividing up into their particular groups. Now, I'm old enough, and you are too, to remember when a person could have a different opinion and perception from you, and you all could still be friends. You didn't see them as enemies that need to die because they didn't have the same political beliefs that you do. Now, people of different political beliefs, for example, literally see each other as if they're enemies to each other. That's not going to fly if we're going to survive on this planet. I'm hoping that we don't make this a failed experiment. I really do. So far, it's a call for love. And so the Course in Miracles says you can't change the world anyway. All you can change is the way you see it and the way you look at it. I can't change you all, but I can change the way I see you. So the Course is telling us what? He's giving us instruction. He says, well, a little child recognizes that they don't understand what they see, so a little child asks what it means. What is the instruction? Don't make the mistake. What is the mistake? Of believing that you understand what you perceive. So it's a mistake for any person that is full of fear to believe that they understand what's going on. A Course in Miracles premise is when you have the correct perception and understanding, you will feel some form of peace. So therefore, in the areas of your life where you have the least peace in right now, that's the area of your life that you have the least understanding of what's really going on. Do you know that the area of your life that you're most dissatisfied in or feel fear in, that's the area of your life that your perception of what's going on is the most incorrect? Have you noticed that when people think that they're most right, it's usually when they're most upset and afraid and angry? Have you ever done that? Been totally upset and was going off because you just knew you were right. Have you ever been angry and upset about something and found out you were totally wrong? Do you have any ideas how many times you've been totally wrong and never knew it? Mm-hmm. Do you know that there's some areas in your life you're wrong right now and don't know it? See, I used to think, oh, I caught myself the one time I was wrong. and now I realize have you done it? It's almost like we'll do that. Oh, but you don't stop to think, what other areas of my life could I be absolutely wrong and don't know it? So the Course in Miracles taught me how to handle that. Would you like to know? It says the way that you handle it is when you're most upset, admit that you don't like the way you feel, and then tell yourself you hope you're wrong about it. I think you might be going out with somebody else and cheating on me. At least I can decide I don't like the way that feels, but I hope I'm wrong about it. So if you want to correct an issue with another person without them being defensive, how could you do that? You could do it by starting the conversation with this phrase: I hope that I am wrong, but this is what I'm feeling right now. I hope that I'm wrong, but this is what I think I saw. I hope that I'm wrong, but it looks like you don't really listen to what I say. Start out with, I hope I am wrong. That will help the person not start out in a defensive posture with you. If you come straight out attacking them, then they're not going to hear anything that you say. Okay, I'll say it again. All right. Practical application of the truth. So guess what? I might not be able to prove to you that you're a spiritual being that lives forever. But you certainly can be quiet when you're upset. Say to the person, I hope I'm wrong. This is what I'd like to do. See, the practical application, what is it going to require? The practical application is going to require me changing. Mm-hmm. And me, I'm going to keep saying that. That's why it's not as thrilling. That's why what I'm saying is it's not as thrilling. The Course in Miracles, I love it because it tells me exactly the psychological structure of a person who believes that they're separate from me and who believes that they are afraid. Okay? And then it tells you exactly the psychological structure of a person who believes they're one with you and want to be united. It tells you exactly what people are going to do who believe that they're victims of their experience and exactly what people are going to do who believe they're responsible for their experience. All the way through the book, it's basically saying a crazy person going to act like this, the same person is going to act like this. Right. Right. So I know that a fearful person, it told me that the one thing you can count on about a person that's fearful is they're going to try to control. That's the first thing. So I know that if I'm talking to a person or if I'm feeling afraid, the first thing I'm going to try to do is come up with a way for me to try to control the situation. So if you're around fearful people, you're going to be around people who are very controlling. Do you know any controlling people? Okay, they're afraid. And the reason why they're so controlling is they think quite rationally in a way that if they can control the situation, then they can be safer in the situation. That sounds reasonable. If I can control what's going to happen to me tomorrow, I'll be safer tomorrow. So we don't realize that our self-initiated plans come from our fear that we're not going to be taken care of unless we do it ourselves. That's why I try to tell people, the Course in Miracles is a spiritual teaching. It teaches us that the only problem you got is that you've forgotten your connection to your source. That the only problem anybody has is that they are not in communication with God, the higher power, whatever word. I get so tired of saying whatever word you want to use for that. Okay. It has the audacity to say, if I really knew my connection to love, if I really knew my connection to source, I wouldn't be worried about my bills. I wouldn't be worried about COVID. I wouldn't be worried about what my mates doing when they're out of sight. I wouldn't be worried about getting laid off on my job. I wouldn't be worried about anything I'm worried about if I knew my divine nature and I knew my connection to the divine. The Course to me is most helpful with people who know they have challenges with that belief and that faith in the divine, but they want to get past that block. Not those who necessarily are adamantly coming from the place that there's no such thing as a divine, and then to expect me or somebody else to somehow convince them that the divine exists. I'm not interested in doing it. Okay, so I'm the wrong teacher if you need somebody to convince you at all. Because I know from what the Course told me that part of loving you is letting you have your own beliefs the way you want to have them as long as you want to have them. People ask, well, why doesn't God intervene? Well, because first of all, you're not asking. It don't count that you said that you yell, help me, God, as your car goes over the cliff. Okay? because you haven't built that muscle up in your mind and you haven't built that connection up. And people are calling God in a second when things look like it's really grave. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, And you know what's the great part the Course teaches about what real love is, that you still receive the help still. So even if you don't believe, even if you've been dastardly, you're still going to get help and you're still going to be loved. The Course in Miracles teaches the main mistake we make is confusing human love with divine love. This book is not trying to teach you how to do human love, because human love isn't love. Human love isn't love. What humans do with each other is not love. What? See, I'll do both of them. What? What do you mean? And I say this over and over again because I'm trying to change my mind. We do specialness, we don't do love. I treat you special. You are my daughter. I'm going to treat you special because you are my daughter. And because you are my daughter, I'm going to try to feed, clothe, and house you because you are my daughter. That means you are special to me. Now, the daughter of my neighbor next door, right? So love, the Course in Miracles teaches, love includes everyone. And it includes everyone equally. That the real divine love leaves no one out. Our love leaves everyone out. Except who? The special ones. right? And I heard people say, well, you know, your parents going to love you no matter what. There are plenty of parents who kick their kids out the house and told them, I never want to see you again. Just because that's your mother or father is not a guarantee that you're going to experience care or love. It's not built in, but we don't get examples of that. We don't get examples of unconditional love. So we are receiving unconditional love, but we're not actually, we're not aware of it, would be the better way the Course would say it. So a person who doesn't know what real love is could be in the presence of someone that's really loving them and never know it. So the Course in Miracles, for instance, the Course in Miracles teaches me that love is freedom. So the way that I'm going to show you my love is that I'm going to free you from the scripts that I'm making up that you've got to fulfill for me to be happy, right? I'm going to support your choices about what you think is best for you. I'm giving you freedom, which the truth is I'm not giving you freedom. You're free anyway, but we pretend like we give each other freedom in relationships. We really actually pretend like I'm giving my mate freedom or I'm giving my friend. It's really kind of funny when you think of it. And then now that you think you really are the person who can give them that freedom. So the truth is, so if I'm talking to somebody and they have a million limitations that they want to put on me from studying the Course, in my mind, I'm going, this person doesn't really love me. I might be special to them, but they don't really love me. And guess what? In this world, most of the time I go for the specialness rather than nothing. That's why the older people get sometimes, the more they feel like they need to get somebody to be with them in old age to take care of them, which is the wrong reason to get with anybody, by the way. Okay? But as I get older, I see that more and more among my peers, is that they think of getting in a relationship in terms of who's going to be there for them in the latter part of their life, more so than I'm getting with you because I love you. So basically I'm trying to get with people to get, which also isn't love. But if I knew I was going to be taken care of by Holy Spirit, by the divine, and I knew how to communicate with the divine, then I wouldn't be worried about it because I know I would be taken care of one way or another. Now, people who haven't learned how to live by faith and by guidance, they think that what I'm saying is a bunch of crock. But that's because they are remembering what we said earlier. They are remembering their experience. They're acting from their beliefs. And so if you believe that God does not exist, then you won't see any evidence of God. If you believe love doesn't exist, then you'll see 1,000 justifications. If you believe that loving people don't exist, then you'll only see the people who seem to be unloving. So to you, it's a lie when I say to you, there are people that you can really trust, because that's not your what? Experience. Right. But we're so arrogant that we think our experience is the arbiter of what's true. So the Course says, don't make the mistake of believing that you understand what you see, because the meaning of what you see is lost to you. But your right mind, the Holy Spirit, your loving mind, the Holy Spirit, has saved its meaning for you. So if you would let the truth interpret what's going on in that relationship, if you let the divine God interpret the truth, I like to use the term truth and God, which the Course uses those synonymously, because then it doesn't sound so abstract. If I say to myself that when it says, let the Holy Spirit has saved the meaning for you, and if you would let the Holy Spirit interpret what you are going, if you let the truth interpret what you're seeing, the truth will restore to you what you've thrown away. Yet while you think you know the meaning of what you're going through, I want you to take a specific situation or circumstance or relationship right now that you're dealing with. Okay? Well, while you think you know the meaning of what's going on in that situation or relationship that you're dealing with right now, while you think you know the meaning of what's going on, you won't see the need to ask of your divine guidance, God, the Holy Spirit, for its meaning. If I think I know the meaning, I'm not going to ask you what's the meaning. So the Course in Miracles says, well, the reason why it looks like Spirit isn't there for you is that the truth is you don't ever really stop and ask Spirit what's the meaning of what I'm going through right now? The Course in Miracles says what we do is make up our mind and then ask God what to do. We do it just reverse. We come up with what we think is going to make us happy, it says, and then we come up with who we think is going to make us happy, and then we ask God's advice. I decide on the job I want, then I ask the universe to tell me what I should do. I should have asked the Spirit if that was what I should have first. And then it says, if it's an answer that's coming from Spirit, the divine, you will know it because it will always be something that you are adequate to do. That's the number one thing. He says, if you get an answer from God, higher power, it's going to be something you can do. Now, I'll say it again. If you get an answer from the truth, it will always be something you can take advantage of and do right now. That's the first thing. So if you're asking and it looks like it's going to take you 10 years to accomplish it, or you say you want something and you can't have it today, then the Course says, well, that's a plan you've made up. What? Yeah, you want to be a doctor and it take you 10 years? That's a plan you've made up. Any plan that involves you having the success of it in the future, the Course in Miracles teaches, is a plan that is coming from your ego. It's a plan that you've made up, separate from divine guidance. Because how will you know if you're following divine guidance unless you also know when you're not following divine guidance? Wouldn't that be the easy way? So why is it that it looks like, have you ever had a plan and it failed?
Yeah.
Okay, the plan that failed was yours. If I see you and I'm going to try to get you to love me, that's my plan. If I see you from across the room and I want to get to know you and try to get you to like me, that's my plan. Because if I don't have it right now, it's my plan. And see, and then he goes, and then what you start doing then is based on your past experiences and your past relationships and your past beliefs, you come up with how you're going to get to know her. So you're really not, and if your pattern is that you have relationships that bring you a lot of conflict and challenge, then that's your clue that your programming about relationships is absolutely, totally crazy and not correct. Therefore, if you see that you have tried to do something over and over and over again and over and over and over again and it doesn't work, then the Course would say you're still following your plan. You haven't stopped and asked for another way to look at it. Sometimes when people want to counsel to me, I'll say to them, I'm willing to do it if you're willing to let me make you mad. Because I can't give you a new way of looking at whatever you're going through and tell you what you already believe. Because if you're saying you want a new way, then that means you're saying you want a different way. And so if I give you a different way, it's going to be different from the way you believe. So there's no way you can keep thinking the way you already think and think you're going to get a different result. What do we call that? Insanity. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and thinking you're going to get a brand new result. Okay, so the area of your life that you have the most conflict in is the area of your life that you're seeing most incorrectly. So a lot of times during the day, I'll stop and say to myself, by the way I'm feeling, especially if I'm feeling challenged or conflict or upset, and I feel that way all day, then at some point during the day, I'd say to myself, Purdy, you are seeing everything wrong. This was a day you looked at everything wrong all day. You were unhappy today, you felt sad today, you felt bored today, you felt a victim today, then this was a day you didn't see anything correctly. This is a day you didn't use the truth at all. And you innocent. And you loved. And nobody's going to beat you up about that. Nobody's going to attack you about that. You ain't going to hell about that. You already have punished yourself enough because you gave yourself a whole day that you felt unhappy. So you did enough on your own. You don't need spirit to add nothing to it, right? You know why? Because you didn't ask for another way to look at this day. Then it says, you don't know the meaning of anything you see. What? Do you know that you don't know the meaning of anything you see? Wait, I know the meaning of something. No, you don't know the meaning of anything you see. There is not one thought that you have that's totally true. That's what is it. Y'all kind of understand now why I said the resistance. You don't find it hard to believe in Christ. Do you understand that that 1 out of every 50 people that come to this class come back? It's like sifting for gold when you teach. It might take 100 people that might come through before one person resonates to the way that it's coming through you, right? I don't worry about it because I've done this full time for 37 years. And so I've had a chance to watch that there's something that continues to provide for me like I was promised, regardless of what's going on in my outer world. And anybody that thinks you're doing this for money, they got to be crazy. If a person was all about money, you can think of a lot easier things to do than teach spiritual stuff on a donation basis. It's not exactly the most renegade, I'm glutton for money kind of way to live. Wow. The reason why I'm saying that is because the Course taught me that we value power, money, fame, and physical pleasure. So he says unless something is going to give us power, money, and fame, and physical pleasure, it tends not to attract the human mind, the ego mind, the regular person. Have you ever wanted power? Have you ever wanted money? Have you ever wanted physical pleasure? Have you ever wanted to be treated special? Okay, that's exactly what the Course in Miracles says is the underlying desire of the whole world. It's some form of specialness. That's why the people who treat us the most special is usually the one that gets our attention the most. When I hear people say it's hard to have relationships or it's hard to attract someone or be with someone, I'm not going, well, evidently you don't give. You don't give specialness. You don't single anybody out and give them your attention and give to them and show them that they're valuable to you. Because if you did that, you'd have relationships. Because most people in the world want that. This is why this is so cool. This to me is like the formula, right? So he says the recognition that you don't know the meaning of anything that you're seeing, the recognition that there's not one thought that you have that's totally true. He says that's your firm beginning. So if a person wants to move toward the answer, the first thing the Course says you need to do is tell yourself there's not one thought that I'm having about this situation that I'm upsetting that's actually really true. And if I recognize that I don't really know the meaning of this relationship that I'm having all these challenges in, I don't really know the meaning. I don't really understand the meaning of what's going on. He says that once you say you don't know, that's your firm beginning, because when you admit that you don't know, that's when the universe can come to your support and come to your aid, because you don't know. If you don't know, then you're requesting to know. If you say you do know, you're telling the universe, you don't need to give me any help and give me any information because I already know. So when I'm counseling sometimes and talking to people, and I say stuff and they go, oh yeah, I know that. And I said, please stop saying you know that, because every time you say you know that, it closes your mind to hearing the answer. And truth students are notorious at that. They're harder to counsel sometimes than regular people. Regular people with regular teachings at least will go, I don't really know what's happening right now. A true student will go, I've been studying this forever, and I'm still having this problem. Because they think they know. So sometimes we can be the most challenging people to get another way to look at things, because we think hearing something is the same as I'm doing it. I came to your class and I heard what you said, but my relationship hasn't changed. Right? So the Course says, the recognition that you don't know in that situation, that's your firm beginning. You're not really misguided. The Court says, you all are not misguided. How could you be misguided? Because guess what? You're not misguided. You haven't accepted any guide. So you really can't be misguided unless you're being guided. He says, well, you're not misguided. You haven't really accepted any guide. So you're not misguided. He said, so nobody's misguided. For me to misguide you, you would have to be accepting my guidance. So the Course of Miracles says, you're not misguided. You're not actually accepting any guidance. You already think you know, right? Then the Course goes, so what is your great need? Well, he says your great need is instruction in perception. What you need is to be instructed on how you should interpret things, how you should see things. Perceptions, the underline is, if you're able to do it in your book, perceptions, guess what? Recognize that you don't understand anything, but don't accept that you don't understand anything, because understanding is really your inheritance. So you need to understand what then? You need to understand that your perceptions are learned. You learn to see things the way you see things. You learn to see things the way you see things. You learn to see things the way you see things. Your perceptions are learned. The way you see relationships, you learn that. The way you see your financial situation, you learn that. The way you see your job situation, your family situation, your spiritual situation, everything that you experience in your life, you're seeing it that way because you learned it. And so you need instructions in how to see things, and then it turns around and says, and you have a teacher. I need to learn how to drive a car, and I got somebody that's going to teach me how to drive a car. But I need to first say I don't know how to drive a car, right? So when I told my sister when I turned 16, I don't know how to drive a car, then she taught me. If I had already said I knew how to drive a car, she wouldn't have taught me. And back in the olden days, when you turned 16, you could actually get the full-fledged driver's license, and you basically drove around the block. It was amazing. I turned 16, the next week I had my driving lesson. My mother would have had a heart attack. She had seen me out on the street. But that's why I know God is real. When I look back on my life, it is so obvious to me that I had divine protection, and it just wasn't my time. Nobody dies until it's their time. I remember coming home from school one day as a child, and I was getting ready to go back to the bathroom to wash my hands, and I got ready to touch the faucet, and I noticed that the light hadn't come on. The light wasn't on. So I stopped, and then I went to try to turn the lights on. Light turned out there was some type of short where if I had touched the faucet, I would have been electrocuted. It wasn't my time. It wasn't my time. But if you think you're just a body and you think that when you die, you're gone, then I can see why we all cling to physical life so much. But if you knew your eternal nature and you knew who you really were and you knew your spiritual identity, you would know that the body dies, but you don't. And since the body is how we communicate with each other, then when you don't have a body, nobody can hear you. You know, the TV station is broadcasting. Without a TV, you never see it. Is that not true? And when your TV is turned off, is it still broadcasting? Yes. So all your family and relatives are still broadcasting. You just can't hear them for two reasons. Number one, you've been taught that you can't communicate with them, and they no longer have a body to communicate to you with. So you just assume they no longer exist. That's startling. Some people hard to believe. I've already said a lot of stuff that people will go, that's just a bunch of crap if I've ever heard it in my life. I don't care. I don't care whether a person believes me or not anymore, because I'm not trying to change their mind. I'm not trying to convince them of anything. And it has nothing to do with whether or not I can apply it to myself. Right? So you don't have to agree with me. That doesn't mean I need to change what I believe. So someone that loves you is going to try to find out what you believe and then support you in that if it's loving. I'm not going to support you if it's something that's not loving, but I'm not going to try to get you to live your life the way I do and see things the way I do, because each one of us have our own individual path. And your individual path could be different from my individual path. And what would work for me may not necessarily work for you in that form. So therefore, if you are with someone, let's say you go out with someone and you meet someone for the first time and you all spend the evening together and you leave and you realize they never ask you one question about yourself, that they spent the entire time talking about themselves. You know everything. If you're an aware person, you already know what that would be like to be in a relationship with them. You already know that this is a person who would not really be interested, that this would be a person that's trying to be interesting. Most people are trying to be interesting rather than be interested. Again, the Course teaches me little simple things like that, right? And so I'm talking to you, and whether you know it or not, our first date, you told me everything I needed to know about how little interest you showed in what I thought, what I'm about, and what I believe, because you were so busy trying to impress me. So I need instruction and perception. He says, well, you are not without a teacher, and yet your willingness to learn of your teacher depends on your willingness to question everything you learned. Say what? If I want to learn from God, if I want to learn from the truth, if I want to learn from any teacher, the Course says what you want to do if you need to learn from any teacher is you need to question everything you taught yourself. So why should you question everything you taught yourself? If you don't feel joy and peace and happiness, then you need to question everything that you're teaching yourself and everything that you're telling yourself. Do you know that the right use of judgment is your own feelings? Judge by your own feelings whether or not you are seeing something correctly. So the Course then says you won't be willing to let yourself be taught until you're willing to question everything that you taught yourself. So that means that the person must be willing to, like the Course says, entertain the possibility that you may not know everything. It says that. Are you willing to entertain the possibility that you don't know everything there is to know? It says, well, if you are willing to entertain the possibility that you might not know everything, then you can be helped. So I say every day, I don't know what anything is for. I don't know what you're for. I don't understand anything. I say, I'm in this situation. I'm upset about it. There's something about it I don't understand. Right? Because he's giving me very practical instruction. No one, I loved it, says, yet your willingness to learn of spirit depends on your willingness to question everything. So what is it that you need to question? You need to question everything you taught yourself. Because you who learned amiss, I love that, you who learned incorrectly should not be your own teacher. But miserable person, jealous person, insecure person, racist person, angry person, judgmental person, broke person, projecting person. You learned incorrectly, so you're the last one that needs to be teaching you. That's what it says. You need to let a power greater than yourself teach you. So what is the purpose of the Course in Miracles? The purpose of the Course in Miracles is to get rid of the blocks that keep you from being able to hear your inner teacher, your spiritual guidance. The reason why you can be rest assured that I'm not a cult leader is because there's nothing I've said to you that's about me being in control of your life. Everything I've said to you has been about how you can change your own mind and how you can look at things differently. And I'm not telling you how to dress, how to act, none of your behaviors. That's traditional religion. It fits the definition of a cult more than anything I'm doing up here. You're told what to say, you're told how to act, you're told how to dress, you're told what you should be doing, who you should be doing it with. And if I wore some of the outfits that some of the religious leaders wear in traditional religion, you all would have run out that door as soon as I came, and you all came in. right? My point in saying is not to judge traditional religion, because I know anybody that's in it who really want love and want to be loving, they're going to find it in that too. Anybody who really wants the truth and really wants God and they're sincere, it doesn't matter whether they're in unorthodox or conventional. If the person who's looking for love and really wants to connect with love and truth, they're going to do that through whatever their belief is. People who want to judge, people who want to condemn, people who want to be separate and blame, they'll find a way to do it, whether they study traditional religious beliefs or they do the Course in Miracles. They'll still find a way to be separate. So the bottom line is, do you want to separate or do you want to join? Do you want conflict or do you want peace? So I'm going to complete with one thought. If there's a situation or circumstance that you have an issue that you're dealing with another person and you want to get that issue healed, this is what I would invite, two things I would invite you to start out with. You would start out with, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I really like for us to have peace, right? I hope I'm wrong. That's one of the things that you want to start out. And then the other question you should ask, see, this is practical instruction, right? See, I'm giving practical instruction. So I've given things today. If you listen back over this talk, there's been one thing after another from the Course in Miracles that I've shared that would give you exact instructions about how to get rid of the blocks and the pain that you're going through right now. So you can't say you didn't get a way out of whatever it is that you're troubled about in whatever area that you're in. So you ask that person and you go, first of all, do you want to join with me or do you want to separate? In other words, you get the goals set from the very beginning. You sit down and you go, it's not about which one of us is right. It's not about which one of us is right. And you think the answer is me allowing myself to be blamed or you allowing yourself to be blamed. First of all, if we want to get out of this, if we want to go through this, if we want to heal, we need to establish the goal. And the goal is for us to join. The goal is for us to have peace with each other. The goal is for us to let go of the block between us more than the goal is to be right. So I'm going to say to you again, do you want to be joined with me or do you want to separate from me? Because if you want to separate from me, no matter what I say, you're going to use what I say to make you feel more separate from me. Haven't you had that experience? That you talk to somebody and you trying your darndest to try to have peace with them and you trying to agree with them and you trying to do everything you can to get past the block. And so if you try to be loving and forgiving, you go, well, please forgive me for the way that I did or the way that I was expressing myself. Then they get mad at that. Then because if their goal is to separate, there's nothing you're going to say that's going to work. But I've never, ever counseled with anybody, no couple, and I've been doing this for decades, who did not heal and have peace with each other when that was their goal. I've talked to people, and you have too, and you see it in your own personal life, that you could see they did not want to join with each other. What they wanted was to say that they made the attempt and it didn't work. So they could walk away and say, we went to counseling and it tried and we just couldn't get our act together. Now notice I said the two people who wanted to have peace together had peace. That doesn't mean they necessarily stayed physically together in that relationship. I'll say that again. When I say a successful counseling session is where both people feel like they got peace with each other. It doesn't have anything to do with necessarily you stay married or you get a divorce. The goal is peace, not a form. It isn't about, I'm going to try to keep my marriage together, that form together. It's about, I want peace with you. I want love with you. I want unity with you. I want harmony with you. And for some people, they have that more when they don't live together. And they're not in that form. I know people who are better friends now
Yes.
and get along with each other better now than they did when they were married to each other. And I've certainly had special relationships like that. There's not anybody that I've had a special relationship in all my years on the planet that I cannot pick up the phone and call them today and have a conversation with them and go out to lunch or go out to dinner because I wanted peace with them more than I wanted to be right. I recognized I didn't understand something about that if I wasn't experiencing peace and joy. There was something we didn't understand about each other, something we didn't understand. Like it says right there, I'm willing to go, I don't understand, and so I'm not going to teach myself. So that's why I go to the Course in Miracles as my spiritual path, because that's an example of me not teaching myself, because I'm listening to wisdom that I've decided is greater than my own. So ask yourself, are you doing that? I've given you some very practical tips from the Course that you can use. I'm also going to now do the love offering in case you want to ask you if you want to make a donation. That's wonderful. I appreciate that. I deserve it. You deserve to receive what you receive from what you give and how you serve, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you. And if you're online and you would like to make a financial expression of appreciation, thank you. If you'd like to do that, you can use Venmo, the Cash App, PayPal, or Zelle. You just need my email address, earlpurdy@earlpurdy.com, Purdy, earlpurdy@earlpurdy.com. I'm available for one-on-one sessions called Clarity Sessions. If you'd like to find out more about having a one-on-one with me, then go to my website, www.earlpurdy.com. You can read about my sessions, and then you can self-book an appointment with me right from online. Thursdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, I do hardcore Course in Miracles for Course in Miracles students who are reading and studying the book, and they really would like to take more advantage and go deeper with someone who is as obsessed about it and been doing it as long as I have. That's why I call it hardcore. I'm assuming that you've already made the decision that this is something you would like to do and learn to do deeper. And you can also watch on a replay. If you'd like to come in person on Sunday at 1 o'clock Mountain Time, on the Earl Purdy page, you can do it online like you're doing right now. The vast majority of the people I teach are there online. But you in Denver, you can also come and attend in person at 1555 Race Street in Denver, Colorado, 80206. 1555 Race, Sundays, 1 p.m. Mountain Time. And it's also online, and it's just online on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. I upload all my classes also up to YouTube. So you can watch I got hundreds of classes on YouTube. I've been blessed and fortunate in that I've had over 1.5 million views on YouTube. And so there's somebody out there that want to hear something I'm talking about. And I'm also grateful to those of you in person because I love also having that physical interaction with you all. You know, to actually see that I appreciate that it's valuable enough for you to take the time to get dressed and come over here. Really. Because it'd be so easy just to stay at home and just say, I'm just going to catch you online. So I don't take that for granted. And I realize that it's no accident. Even if you're here and you don't know why, it's no accident. There was something that Spirit wanted you to hear today, that you were either watching it online or you're in here today, whether you've ever heard of anything that I'm talking about. So take a breath. I'm going to take a couple of minutes, and then we're going to be finished. Just want to... Are you willing to become like a little child in your relationship to the divine right now? Are you willing to say, I don't understand in the situation that you may be dealing with is challenging to you right now? If there's a situation that you're dealing with that's challenging with you right now, step one is to tell yourself, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand what I'm seeing. Tell yourself right now, I don't understand what I'm seeing in this situation. I don't understand what I'm seeing in this circumstance. Don't make the mistake of believing that you understand what you're seeing when you're unhappy and fearful. Don't make the mistake that you're looking at it correctly. You have a sane mind. You have a spiritual mind called the Holy Spirit. And that part of you knows what everything that you're going through means. So if you would let the truth, if you would let Spirit interpret what you're going through, you would know the true meaning of what you're going through. If you say, how do I know when I'm listening to Spirit? Well, you need a spiritual path. The Course in Miracles is my spiritual path, and it's the spiritual path of many other people. So if you say, for instance, the Course in Miracles is your spiritual path, then you would go to the Course in Miracles, and you would go to the workbook, and you would go to the text, and you would familiarize yourself with what it's teaching you, because it's giving you another way to look at what you're going through right now. There's another way to look at what you're going through right now in that area. But you must not be the one that tries to teach yourself without trying to tune into knowledge that is greater than yours. The Course in Miracles is not the only path to truth of God and love. The Course in Miracles is not the only path. There's only one truth, but there are many ways of getting to that truth. And your individual path is the path that appeals to you the most to move toward the truth, to move toward love, to move toward God, to move toward peace. That's your spiritual path. So those of you who said the Course in Miracles is your path, tell yourself you don't understand in the situation that you're going through right now, and you're willing to look at it another way. Tell yourself, I don't really know the meaning of what I'm seeing right now. That there's not one thought that I'm having that's totally true about this person or about this situation right now. That's your firm beginning. You need to be instructed in perception. Do you know you need perception instruction? And the Course in Miracles in any wisdom text is giving you perception instruction, giving you another way of looking at things that will give you more peace in what you're going through. Do you know that your perceptions are learned? You see things the way you see things. You believe the way you believe because you learned to look at it that way. That's one of the problems going on right now with all the different divisions around race and gender and all the stuff that we're dealing with right now. People are reacting to what they learned about black folk, what they learned about white folk, what they learned about gray folk. People are just reacting to their programming and their learning. And if that programming and that learning is making you not love somebody, making you not want peace for somebody, making you want to judge somebody, then everything you've learned is absolutely amiss, as the Course said. So are you willing to question everything that you've learned in the areas that you feel any kind of dissatisfaction and unhappiness? Well, know that you are not alone. So tell yourself, I don't know what anything is for right now. I hope I'm wrong. I want another way to look at it. Perhaps there's another way to look at it. I hope I'm wrong. At least I can decide I don't like what I feel right now. At least I can decide that I don't like the way I feel right now. And so I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong in this situation. I want another way to look at this. I want another way to look at them. I want another way to look at this. I want another way to look at them. Perhaps there's another way to look at this. Perhaps there's another way to look at my mother, my father, whoever this is that I'm feeling separate from right now. Perhaps there's another way to look at this. Perhaps there's another way to look at them. What can I lose? What can I lose by asking? And then you say, I'm determined to see you differently. I'm determined to see this differently. Say that to yourself. I'm determined to see you differently. I'm determined to see this differently. I'm determined to see you differently. I'm determined to see this relationship differently. I'm determined. Say that to yourself. That's instruction. That is instruction. That is instruction in perception. You're getting instructions about how to look at things, how to change your mind, how to give yourself the peace and the joy and the happiness that you say you want. In the areas that you are most upset in the areas that you are most afraid in, the areas that you feel the most guilt or fear in, be willing to tell yourself, I hope that I'm wrong. I don't want to be right and miserable. I don't want to be right and miserable. Because if I'm right and miserable, where can I go? If what I'm doing is right and I'm totally miserable, you can't go to something more right than right. So if you think you're right, there's nowhere to go. There's no way. Every time you say you know, and you're angry and you're upset and you want to be right, and you want to be right more than you want to be happy, you're shutting down your assistance. But that's not true about you. Because if you did not really want the situation changed and healed, you wouldn't be here right now. So I appreciate you. Thank you for showing up and remembering with me. I really appreciate y'all. Online, I really appreciate you all so much. So the talk is going to be on YouTube. I got hundreds of classes on YouTube. I appreciate you all more than words can say. Hugs are available if you dare.